Hello and welcome in. I am Greg Smith, recruiting extraordinaire for Hail Varsity, and I am once again joined for our Thursday football video by Steve Marik, staff writer for Hail Varsity. Steve, how are you today?
I'm doing great. I got my morning started by clearing off my driveway with the old shovel. So the snow is now gone, but it's kind of coming down again. So there is my weekly weather report for when we start these things.
Nice. I like it. We have a thing. It's kind of our brand to always start these things with a weather update. I have not gone out there and cleared my driveway yet with the shovel. I've been kind of dreading it. We'll see how it goes. Though it doesn't look like it's that bad, so I'm not dreading it too much. It's better than what was expected, right? When he scared me yesterday at the stadium.
Yeah, I think a lot of people were expecting more, but looked like you lucked out here.
Well, the one thing that we were expecting a lot of yesterday, to segue us into what we were talking about, and we did get a lot, was quarterback day, right? It was quarterback day yesterday for spring practice for Nebraska. As they finished up their Wednesday practice, it's been the tradition under Coach Scott Frost. There was a day where basically, almost all of the quarterbacks were made available to press. So we got to hear from Casey Thompson for the first time. We heard from Chubba Purdy for the first time, and then Logan Smothers and Heinrich Harberg also spoke with the media. So I thought that today would be a really good day for us to just kind of go through and talk about the highlights of what we heard from each quarterback and maybe kind of anything that we learned from hearing from the quarterback. So Steve, I guess we'll start with Logan Smothers. What kind of stood out to you about what we heard from Logan Smothers?
Man, I really like Logan Smothers as like a person, as like a kid. He's really, you could tell that I think he's a really good, genuine dude. And the fact that, he's staying and battling in spring here. And he talked about the whole process. And what I really appreciate about Logan, and this might not be good coming from a member of the media, is with his answers, they're very short, direct. He just says what he says his thought, and then it's off to the next question. It's almost like a head coach talking, coach speak. So I really like how he handled that setting as kind of like his second overall media appearance that he did. I know he did one. He talked post game after his first start last season at Iowa. It was very short, direct answers, but I think he answered truthfully, and I really respect that about him.
Yeah, I think he's in the most interesting spot of all of the quarterbacks, in that he got that start last year. Things started off really well. He had a couple turnovers. The team ended up losing the game. But at that moment in time, he's probably thinking, okay, those are building blocks for me, right? Like I've started here. I know what Big Ten football is like now. And here I go. I'm going to start to layer on from that. And then it didn't go that way necessarily. We'll see, right? Like Adrian Martinez departs, which is what, I don't want to say Logan hoped for that, but as a guy that wanted to play, somewhere deep down, he hoped that, Adrian would not return, right? I think that's fair to say. But then you turn around and Nebraska adds two scholarship transfer quarterbacks in Casey Thompson and Chubba Purdy. And now he's finds himself back, almost behind the eight ball and starting all over again, also with the new offensive coordinator. And so naturally, a lot of the questions to him yesterday, or a chunk of them, were centered around his desire to stay and if he ever thought about leaving or anything like that. And I've got a story up on hailvarsity.com now you guys can check out about Logan Smothers just kind of embracing the competition because Nebraska is where he wants to be. And I think that it does tie into just how long he was committed to Nebraska in the recruiting process. He committed before Luke McCaffrey did, who was the quarterback in the class ahead of him. And so I just think there's a lot there. And I do think there's a lot to like, and he's not going to go down without a fight. And I guess this provides a good segue, though, to go into what did you like about Casey Thompson, or what stood out to you from Casey Thompson's time with the media yesterday?
Casey Thompson, to me, was incredibly impressive. He was mature. He expounded on his answers. He knows a lot about what Mark Whipple is trying to install in his offense, and he talked about it too. What I really loved was I asked him kind of what his favorite things about this offense are, or what are some things that he really likes about what Mark Whipple is trying to do. And he said that the way that the offense wants to, I guess, mess with and make a defense think a lot more than it needs to do. Casey talked about using different formations and using motions to kind of just like get a defense thinking, whereas at the end of the day, they're just trying to do a similar or a same concept or play on the play. And they just want to disguise it by, lining up differerly, but at the end of the day, just doing the same concepts and being good at those concepts. I thought that was really interesting and insightful into what Mark Whipple and his passing offense is going to want to do here in Lincoln. So I thought that was really, really awesome. And I have a quote here about what he was kind of talking about when he was looking for his options at legitimate options for him to land in the transfer portal when he went in it at Texas. And he said that he was doing a lot of research up to 2 weeks prior to even entering his name into the portal about like, hey, what options do I have here? And he really landed on Nebraska, Oklahoma, and Auburn as the top three. And then he obviously picked the Huskers. But his quote was during his recruiting process, I was looking for a great offense and a great offensive mind. The research that I did, honestly, it was just film study, just trying to watch and see what teams around the country have and the potential to where the good receivers were at. And honestly, I think we have enough talent and plenty of pieces in place here to win ball games and to compete at a high level. So that was ultimately why I decided to come here. So he was very high on Mark Whipple, and he mentioned what Whipple did with Kenny Pickett. Obviously, Kenny Pickett's coming up again, so it was obviously a big storyline with Casey Thompson yesterday.
Yeah, and I think that the thing that that we had all kind of heard behind the scenes about Casey Thompson is just the leadership, the poise, the preparedness, just the him being a pro, right? And that's, I think, was what Marquise Buford described Thompson as, just getting his early impressions of him from the other side of the football. And I don't think he did or said anything yesterday to dissuade people from that. It probably bolstered that thought even more, as I thought that just kind of watching that back, he was really impressive, and just his delivery, his command, and he carried himself as a guy that had been in this type of a fishbowl before, and that this isn't really going to faze him. I thought that was, I think that is an overlooked or an underrated aspect of being the quarterback at Nebraska, is that guys either have to learn to embrace it or get by with it, or they kind of, in this case with a transfer, come in kind of understanding that. And I do think that gives you a leg up in the situation, like just being able to handle everything.
Yeah, absolutely. I also really liked that he was talking about when the quarterbacks are in the room and the whiteboard is going and Mark Whipple's up there drawing up concepts. One quote from Casey that I really liked was, when he pulls up the concepts or put it on the board, it's all concepts that I've learned before and I've ran at some point in my playing days, but it's just learning the different terminology and kind of how he coaches it is the main thing. Yeah, because that makes sense, because Casey, he said that this will be his fourth offense of his career. And, it's
tough, man.
Yeah. Last year, it was obviously what Steve Sarkisian was doing at Texas, and before that at Alabama. And then also Mike Yurishich from Texas. He had a year there. And then also Tom Herman as well from his Texas days. So Casey has been around. He just, like you said, he had a command up there. Just the experience, you hear him talk, you watch highlights on YouTube of him, and he just seems like a natural leader and just a really safe bet to win this quarterback race.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's interesting too that, we talked about the Whipple effect with Casey Thompson, right? And that came up a lot with Chuba Purdy as well. As I was over with Purdy, and the thing that really grabbed my attention about that was just how close and how tied his decision was into what Mark Whipple did, which was come to Nebraska, right? As Purdy was even asked, like, hey, would you have gone to Pitt once Whipple left? And he essentially said no. He said that he ended up going on that visit anyway. If you remember, he did go take that visit anyway. He said that Whipple encouraged him to still take that visit, but he knew and understood that Whipple still wanted him him then at that point to come to Nebraska or at least check it out. And so the relationship there was interesting. And the reason that I tie those two together with Thompson and Purdy is that I find it really interesting that Mark Whipple is able to really build good relationships with these quarterbacks. And we've seen it now because of how weird this has all come together and how quickly it's come together. We've seen it now in various situations, right? So Purdy was someone that Whipple recruited out of high school. He goes to Florida State. He tried to get him to transfer to Pitt, but hey, he left and went to Nebraska. So now here is Purdy at Nebraska. Casey Thompson obviously built a really good relationship with Mark Whipple. You see it in the 2023 recruiting class with Pop Watson as the quarterback there, someone that is a real strong believer in what Whipple is doing. And I think that is a real key storyline just going forward, not necessarily for right this second, but going forward to see just how Whipple is able to develop these relationships with quarterbacks and how that will pay dividends down the line for them, both on the field and off the field. I think that Purdy mentioning that so much really caught my eye.
Yeah, for sure. And another name that I thought was another moment of Casey Thompson's interview that I found interesting was he threw out Mickey Joseph too, and how his relationship with his dad, Charles Thompson, was a really big factor in the recruiting process. Casey said that Coach Joseph was calling him almost every day trying to get him to commit. So I can only imagine how those phone calls went. That, man, just to be a fly on the wall, right? Just to like hear what they're saying. But I also wanted to throw in our recruiting extraordinaire yourself. I found Chubba's quote on the recruiting side of things really interesting and wanted to kind of get your thoughts on it. He said, "Recruiting is recruiting. They're going to tell you what you want to hear. And once you get to the facility, once you sign, it's different. Sometimes they won't even acknowledge you because you have to earn your way up. You have to prove to them what you can do." That was what Chubba Purdy said about just the whole transfer process and how similar, I guess, it was to when he was coming out of high school.
Yeah, I wanted to ask him a bunch of those questions yesterday because I thought I thought that being a big time quarterback recruit coming out of high school and also having his brother that went through this and was a big time college quarterback as well, like all of that provides to me an interesting mix of, I've just wondered how that went for him the second go round. And he was very candid and honest about kind of how that goes. And he said, in a lot of ways it's similar, but what really changes is that what he's looking for is different. Like you just know as a little bit older guy what it is that you really need to get down to and drill down to about what matters in the recruiting process. I did find that comment about sometimes you'll get to a place and they won't even acknowledge you anymore and make you basically earn your stripes to be really interesting, because he really can only be talking about Florida State because he's only been here for a little bit and isn't a full participant right now, which makes him kind of a wild card in the quarterback race at this point. I guess he's coming back after spring break, and he was adamant to say that it's not the collarbone that has kept him out of spring practice so far. So yeah, I did find that was really interesting with him, and will definitely be something I'll be following up on to go along here. But also we had one more quarterback that talked as well. Heinrich Harberg at a Kearney Catholic spoke to media as well. I guess, Steve, what was it about his time that stood out to you?
Yeah, I think Heinrich was, I don't think he's been in front of the camera a lot in his short career here at Nebraska, but he did a great job, just, really, really good answers and just trying to go along with the whole, transition to the new coaching staff and everything. But yeah, one thing that I really like that he said is, just on the quarterback room and the differences from this spring and last year. He said it's different. The quarterback room last year was really tight, especially the four guys who were here in the spring. I think it's doubled in size since last year, which is crazy to think about. I love being around all these guys. They're all super good guys, and that have their own talents. They all want to learn and get better. So I think, look, Heinrich is in a tough spot right now. I think there's a lot of other quarterbacks above him on the depth chart if we had to play a game right now. But man, he's maybe the most physically impressive quarterback. Like he'd be the first one off the bus, 6'5", 200 pounds. And, he's cut. He looks like a great athlete. I think he just, has some more developing to do from everything that I've seen and read. So yeah, it's a lot of learning going to go on with Heinrich, but yeah, we'll see how it goes. And he's going to really, use this spring, these 15 practices to really kind of work on his game and everything that he needs to improve on.
I do think that you said something really interesting that was honestly the very first thing I thought about, is that he's in a really tough spot. I do think that of all the quarterbacks, Purdy included, I think that he is who's been injured. I think that Harburg's in a really tough spot, because he, being such a young kid coming into the system last year, getting used to that close-knit room and getting used to Coach Verduzco, and then having all of that change on the fly while there's new coaches on offense, a little bit of a philosophy shift, new personalities coming into the room. You've got basically a new leader in the room, because I think it's safe to say that Casey Thompson is at least the leader in that room right now. It's just really difficult on a young kid that, oh, by the way, still needs to develop, right? Like, he still needs to continue to hone his game and to get better and to get used to, Power 5 college football, coming from, Nebraska high school football at Kearney Catholic. There's a lot there for him to get his arms around in a tough period in his life, right? I don't like, it's just a difficult thing. Then I do think long term that he could benefit a lot from taking a longer look at his development, right? And not necessarily, he's not necessarily competing for the job this year, but I think that he's a guy that, man, he needs to live in that office with Mark Whipple and really get under him and try to learn the ins and outs of the offense, learn what he needs to improve on, because Whipple has shown the ability that, like with Kenny Pickett, for example, that always comes up. It wasn't an overnight thing with him, right? And I think that that's something that Whipple can point to and say, stick with me, I'll stick with you, and we'll continue to work this thing through, because we think that you have a skill set that can really develop and be good. It's just a really tough thing to pitch to someone.
Yeah, because kids want to play.
Yeah,
I mean, that's why they're playing college football. They want to play college football.
Right.
So yeah, it's like I said, you kind of feel bad for the Heinrich Harbergs and the Logan Smothers of the worlds, because we know that they're such good kids and they have talent. But at the end of the day, it's just all this, the transfer portal, all this movement in college football. It just kind of tells you something about the business of the game, and that it is a business, and sometimes feelings and promises might be left at the door when things get down to it. And we, with Scott Frost entering his 5th year and needing to show something for it, it's kind of getting down to brass tacks season right now. He's got to start winning, and he's going to bring in the quarterback who he thinks is going to do it. And that means competition, and guys might not be playing as early as they thought they would. So yeah, it's just going to be a super interesting spring here.
Yeah, and I think that is a point that cannot be said enough, that I think that kind of looms over everything. And that when we're thinking about these position battles and all of the competition that's going on in spring, and kind of a new energy on the recruiting trail and a new level of focus and detail with the team overall, like, that is all because Scott Frost needs to show something this year. Like, it is not like this where I think that this will come up more as we get past spring ball and get closer to the season. But this really is such a crucial season for Frost. And it's not just even the overall season, it's how the season starts, right? Because we know the stuff with the contract and when things trigger, in October. So we know that they have to have a pretty good start to the season. Otherwise, we really know where this thing is going. So I just think that that's something to always kind of keep in the back of your mind here, is that it's no longer that Frost has unlimited runway here based on what's happened in the past 4 years. The past 4 years have been very bad. Like, you can't really get around that. And because of that, he's in a must-win situation. And that has to impact all of the decisions that are being made, including what's happening with this quarterback situation, which is why at the end of the day, I think that it ends up being whatever the safest choice is. I think that that's what he has to go with. And I think that we all are kind of in agreement on what that is right now. And it's trending that way with Casey Thompson. He still has to earn it. And he's behaving in a way in which he's trying to earn it. But he also is behaving in a way in which saying that Casey Thompson expects to win the job, it makes it sound bad. But I do think that that's the way that he's carrying himself, which I have no problem with. But I think that that's good for Scott Frost ultimately.
Casey Thompson is absolutely carrying himself like he is going to be the starting quarterback, even though he hasn't been publicly named the starting quarterback yet. But everything that he's doing right now to integrate himself into the program and build relationships and learn the offense, that is exactly what, you want a starting quarterback to do, whether he's taking his offensive lineman to Rodizio's grill or he's taking him out to bowling like he did when he first got here. Yeah, he was super impressive. Like I said, I felt safe, even like, if I was one of the coaches, I would feel safe with Casey Thompson running the quarterback to start the season. But again, it's a competition. They're going to play who they think is going to give them the best chance to win. And, like I said about Logan Smothers, that kid's not backing down. And I really respect that. And I think that, it's that, Southeastern area region of the country. Football is Logan Smothers, and he was raised by a football coach, and you can tell that when he's talking, and he's got some fight in him, and I really appreciate that about him.
Yeah, absolutely, and I think that will help serve everyone, right? For everyone to have that type of fight and embrace the competition, because that really is the phrase of this spring. And guys are going to have to do that all across the board. But that's going to do it for us this week. Make sure you're checking out hailvarsity.com. We have coverage on all of these things and more. This YouTube channel also has all of the videos that we've kind of referenced here throughout our time from all of those quarterbacks. Plus, Scott Frost talked yesterday. We didn't really talk about that. And Mark Whipple talked as well. That just tells you how big of a deal the quarterback day ends up being. But until next week, we will catch you guys next time.